Phineas Olinov, and I'm in 10th grade.
I'm Nick Stidham, and I am in 10th grade.
I'm Kenneth Palmer, and I'm a senior.
I'm Sam Spencer, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Wayne Weiss, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Lame Breacham, and I'm a junior.
A system or a political belief in which a woman or man believes they are fighting for equality, but is in fact fighting for female hegemony.
I believe feminism is a system in which they attempt to try and get the upper hand in society on the basis of feminism.
I guess I disagree with the previous definitions. I think equality is the central point of feminism, along with understanding the nuances of gender interactions, of what gender means and what biological sex means to lots of different people, and just trying to have a greater understanding of the effects of those things in society and how this can disadvantage and advantage certain people.
I agree with the last three, but I disagree with the first two. I don't think that feminism, or really our gender, or the way we work with gender, is like a zero-sum game where like giving women opportunities is taking that away from men. I think feminism is like when you're actively trying to make it more of like an equal ground for both men and women, whether that be like a cisgender woman or like a transgender woman, where like we're allowing everybody with like no matter their gender or whatever they identify as with their sex, like to have equal opportunities. And that doesn't mean that you're taking something away from someone else. That means you're giving someone what they have been deserving since the very beginning.
I think a really important point of emphasis is that we recognize that, feminism isn't just for the benefit of women. I mean, men do benefit from having a lot of these stereotypes and these roles that were assigned erase. Like, men don't have to be aggressive and traditionally masculine. If I were expected to come to that standard, I would fail miserably. And I think that just being able to be genuine and authentically who you are without the predetermined roles that are set is really valuable for a lot of people of both genders, of all genders.
So I think egalitarianism is, for equality for all people. However, feminism is, in theory, for equality, but based on the pre-notion that women are inherently oppressed in today's society. So it's definitely has a bias towards women and those who identify as women, rather than for
Well, it's not necessarily an idea that women are oppressed in today's society, it's a fact. So,
Who's to say that men aren't oppressed?
Me. Okay, so let's look at society right now, right? With jobs, think about that. Women are paid 78 cents to a man's dollar, right? Like, this isn't a made-up fact. This is like actually they've done multiple studies. And I can't remember who did the study, but it's on NPR. I heard it this morning. 1 year out of college, AWC or something like that. They tested how much a man was making 1 year out of college versus how much a woman was making, and even literally 12 months out of college, men are already making 17% more than women. That's not men are oppressed. Men can be oppressed, but they're not oppressed because they are men. Whereas women are oppressed a lot of times, and they're taken advantage of, and they have different rights taken away from them because they are women. That's the difference. No one's saying men don't get oppressed, they do, but it's not because they're men.
Well, I think it's sort of hard for either gender to say that the other gender is or isn't oppressed, but what I can say is that the study that says that women make 72 or 77, or it changes with each study, but I can say that it's an inherently flawed study, and the United States Department of Labor and Time Magazine has reported that it doesn't take in very important and relevant factors such as women are less likely to go for a raise, and it doesn't take job position or the actual occupation. It's just in general women earn less, which could be for the most part women aim for lower paying jobs, which could be a problem within the female psyche or biological, or there are plenty of means that could explain the gender wage gap.
Okay, I think the problem with that is, let's say it's a problem with attitudes that females have. Let's say this is a problem because women believe that they have a certain role in society. That is a consequence of the society that we've set up and the norms that we have. That is not something that's organic and natural. This is something that we've created and socialized people to believe. On the other hand, you're talking about biological ideas. Unless you're saying that women are inherently inferior because of their biological makeup, and that's a very different debate to have, in my opinion. I don't think there's a whole lot of ground for such claims. I think there are inherent problems with the society that we have, not inherent problems, problems that are very much ingrained, that it just to such an extent that we don't realize them. But I certainly don't believe that women are flawed naturally or have minds that function so differently that they're just going to go for different jobs because they think that would be more fun. I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's not really beneficial to them. It doesn't make sense as a choice.
No, I agree. It is society influenced on why women would go after certain jobs, but I wouldn't really call it oppression against women. I'd call it historical society. So instead of people being like oppressed towards women, well, you're a woman, so I'm going to pay you less. It's more of women go for their own jobs. So the whole like there's a patriarchy and men are singling out women to pay less isn't true, and that's been confirmed by the U.S. Department of Labor.
Well, it's not so necessarily that a man goes and says, oh, well, there's a man, there's a woman, and the woman gets less money. It's more towards the fact that it's just inherently based through societal values, men are taught that women have less value than men do, and so are likely to treat them as not as inferiors rather than as equals. And so if a man and a woman are up for a raise, even if they have the exact same qualification, it's been proven time and time again that the man will get the raise and the woman will not.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big part of misunderstanding what like feminism is assuming that like there are just black and white differences of like what the patriarchy is, and like that it's just men like doing something wrong, but it's like a society that just like has these like notions that yeah, women are inferior, and that it just ends up being so ingrained in our culture that like these things happen, and it's not necessarily like someone just deciding a big decision. It's just something that like happens and like isn't questioned necessarily.
I believe that it is achievable in theory, in the way that so many other things are achievable in theory, but not necessarily even in the next 100, 200 years, just because of the way society is structured, the way our power is balanced, and the historical beliefs that people have. It would take something massive, really, to change the way that people think enough to achieve true gender and general equality. So while it is possible for people, for humans, I don't feel that it's a possibility anytime with our current society.
Well, along that line, like last night the Oscars happened, and there's only been like one woman to ever win like Best Director. Like the media's just like extremely, like the majority of media is just controlled by men, and that really just changes how we look at both men and women, because like when you turn on the TV, like there's a standard for people that are on television, that are in like magazines, that are in newspaper, that we don't think about, like just that maybe a woman would have made this movie differently or a commercial differently. And although it's like we could say that about every individual could have made something different, like there's still these ideas that are just propelled by like the patriarchy and just media being like almost entirely controlled by men, that just really changes our society in ways that we don't even think about. Like, it's crazy.
I don't think there can ever be gender equality, and what most of the other people have been saying is that it's women are historically oppressed, but there is significant evidence to show that oppression is almost never based solely on sex, and it's usually based by socioeconomics. But anyway, there is oppression by gender in some cases, but it's not exclusively female. It's mixed, and usually for the most part, if it is based on gender, a rich woman is going to get better treatment than a poor man, and a rich man is going to be treated better than a poor woman. For the most part, it's almost always about class, but in the few cases where it is just about gender, it's definitely mixed, and I just think that's so hard-grained into society that it would take a monumentous revolution to change that. So I don't think in the foreseeable future any adjustment to that could really be made without a violent revolution.
It brings up a pretty good point that it is sometimes all based on a lot of factors that aren't just gender. As he said, a rich woman is going to receive better service than a poor man is, a white woman is going to receive better service than a black man is. A cisgender woman is going to receive better service than a transgender man is. It's as long as there is some axis of oppression in factor, there's going to be all sorts of differences in how people are treated. And so it isn't just about binary genders or class or race or sexual orientation or gender identity or any of that. It's based on there's a multitude of factors, and a lot of them are interconnected. Classism and racism are very strongly interconnected. But that doesn't mean that like improving one of them isn't going to improve others of them, because fighting for equality based solely on gender is also going to improve the lives of people who are of unequal status in society due to other factors.
Okay. I mean, I don't guess I can just say one thing. I think a lot of the arguments we're having, a lot of disagreements we're having are kind of semantic points. Like, it's not a matter of like fundamental ideological differences, although there are some. I think there's a lot of this is just misunderstanding and not understanding what the other person is saying, more so than like really strongly disbelieving in everything. I mean, I think there are differences, but I think that there is a lot more common ground and a lot more that we can work together to solve and understand than there is to fight about, and I think that's really important to emphasize.
I think feminists are, for the most part, truly are pushing for equality, but the aspects and the methods they go by, which are just sort of part of the ideology itself, don't actually go for equality. But I do think that they are trying to do what they believe will create equality. So I think we both agree that we should have equality, we just disagree on where the current oppression is and how we could fix it.